Hi everybody, it's Zach again. Today I'm trying something new. I'm starting off this mini series that I wanted to do talking about historic fires in the United States. Doing this combines two of my passions, history and being a volunteer firefighter. So I'm hoping over the next few weeks I'm going to be able to do several episodes talking about important fires from the aspects of a historian and as a firefighter so that we can explore the stories behind what happens and important lessons learned. I hope you enjoy these videos as much as I will researching and making them. To kick things off, I'm going to talk about the Iroquois Theater Fire in Chicago. This fire happens on December 30th, 1903, in a newly constructed theater building. Now, this theater was supposed to be built in a way that this type of fire could never happen. Theater fires had killed scores of people over the past 100 years or so. And this new modern Iroquois had features that were designed to prevent a similar fire. These include fireproof construction elements like masonry walls, a ventilation system that was designed to remove smoke and fire from the theater's auditorium, a fireproof asbestos curtain that would serve as a fire break between the stage and the seating area, and a series of 30 exits and fire escapes that should have allowed everyone to get out relatively easy. It was also supposed to have a sprinkler and a standpipe system, complete with firefighting equipment, but these were never installed. On the afternoon of December 30th, a group of between 1,700 and 2,100 individuals, some of them in standing space only, had crowded into the theater to watch Mr. Bluebeard, starring Chicago native Eddie Foy. Among this crowd was a large number of middle-class women and children who were enjoying the show on their ongoing holiday school break. Soon after 3:15 p.m., when the show's second act began, a stage light ignited some drapery off to the side of the stage. This fire spread quickly in this area despite efforts to extinguish it, using only a few available fire extinguishers. And as the fire started to spread, the theater began to turn into a fire trap. Despite the hype of the theater's supposed safety measures, numerous deficiencies existed that would soon prove to be deadly. This included the lack of a sprinkler system, the lack of a standpipe system for firefighters to utilize, which meant they would have to bring water and their hoses in through the building to where the fire was. Heavy wood trim had been installed all over the building, and there was an overabundance of stage props and drapery that were all heavily flammable, especially on the ceiling. This ventilation system, designed to remove all this smoke and fire, had not been completed before the building was open, and in fact the vents were boarded up. The staff had never practiced a fire drill or what to do in the event of an emergency, and were really unaware of anything that was going on in the theater. The theater also lacked a fire alarm system or any way to contact the fire department from inside the building. This meant the closest firebox needed to call the fire department was several blocks away. Finally, all these exits were not as accessible as they should have been. Doors were unmarked, hidden behind curtains. They all opened inward, which meant it would have been difficult to exit, and had locks that no one really knew how to open. This was especially true in the balcony areas, where many exits were blocked to keep patrons from moving from the balcony down to the lower areas where tickets were more expensive. Once the fire began to spread, the theater goers headed towards the exits. However, these quickly became choke points when panicked individuals tried to force their way out. Meanwhile, the theater staff tried to lower the asbestos curtain to contain the fire to the rear of the stage. However, this track had been installed so that one of the theater players could fly out from the stage out over the audience. So when the curtain came down, it snagged on the track and only was able to come down about 2/3 of the way. This meant a flow of air and a pathway for the fire existed to come behind the stage onto the auditorium where the public was. Soon after this happened, a staff member who is part of the evacuation in the rear of the theater opens a rear door to help the stage crew gets out. Now, he probably thought this was a good idea, but this large set of double doors, which was used for sets and things to be able to get inside the theater, instead opens a flow path for this fire. And what happens is a big blast of air enters the theater and reignites the fire and causes a backdraft that explodes out into the auditorium. This spread fire into the public areas where people were still trapped in their seats, unable to get out. It also pushed it out the exit doors where people had thought they had reached safety by going outside. Many of them who had come out the second floor were already trapped on fire escapes whose ladders were frozen. So this fire exits out these doors, burns them, and kills most of them. Now, the Chicago Fire Department had first been alerted to the fire when a stagehand had been sent to run the 2 blocks to Engine 13's firehouse. He shows up, finds the firefighter on duty, who then dispatches the company and probably calls the fire alarm station to request additional resources. The initial response consisted of a battalion chief, a hose wagon, and Engine 13 steamer out of that firehouse. If they did indeed reach the fire alarm office, a truck would have been added. While he's en route, the battalion chief from that station, upon arrival, is able to hook another firebox, sending another alarm assignment to get the help that he finds that he needs. The first arriving steamer and hose wagon see a large column of smoke emanating from the theater when they leave the firehouse 2 blocks away. They come in and deploy to the alley in the rear of the theater, where they know most of the people are going to be exiting using the fire escapes. They show up right before or right after the backdraft occurs. They find carnage in the alley, heavy fire burning out of the exit doors onto trapped individuals. But there's not a lot they can do right away because they have to get set up. See, steamers didn't carry hose, and hose wagons didn't have a pump. So they have to be able to connect to the hydrant and bring the hose from the hydrant from the steamer to deploy inside. So what happens is Engine 13 steamer goes to the hydrant, and they hand lay hose back down the alley from the hose wagon to the steamer, who then gets connected and charges the line. And a 2.5-inch line goes into action to try to hit the fire that's coming out of these doors on these people. But the reality is that, and the fact that they're able to finally free these escape steps and get the ladder down for the fire escape, is really too late. Most of the people that were trapped there were already dead. Additional arriving units, including the first 2 truck and the second 2 engine, show up and deploy into the front of the building and also ladder a second floor window on the side. Both crews, though primarily the one going in the lobby, find throngs of people trying to escape. And then when both crews get inside, they find piles of bodies. They and this first 2 company that goes in through the fire escape are eventually able to navigate around the deceased patrons and bring the fire under control in between 20 and 40 minutes. The reality is, once they arrive, the fire is not heavy, and the fire damage inside the theater is not extensive. Because once the backdraft occurs and lights most of the scenery on fire, it burns itself out. However, despite the light damage to the building, the death toll is really high because of the number of people trapped in the exits when the backdraft occurs. Officially, the death toll is 602, with at least 250 people reported injured. A nearby diner is turned into a triage center where doctors and nurses and medical students from a nearby teaching hospital flock to treat the injured. Firefighters and police officers work tirelessly inside the theater, going through piles of bodies to recover the dead and to try to rescue any of the injured. However, there are only a few people that are found inside of these piles, inside of the theater that were still alive. Body removal continued through the night, using even new electric lights brought by the Edison Company. Hundreds of wagons, ambulances, and even the Chicago Fire Department's coal wagons are deployed to haul these bodies away to 30 different morgues and funeral homes. There's really no official record kept of where these people go or where the injured end up. So when the civilians show up to try to find family members and acquaintances that were inside the theater, it takes a long time for them to figure out where they ended up and if they're still alive. I'm sure the psychological toll on them would have been tremendous, and the mental health issues that emanated from the firefighters and the police officers digging through these and recovering all of these horribly burned and disfigured bodies would have been tremendous. No one can even imagine that. The shock and grief across the city starts almost immediately. Theaters in Chicago are closed to reevaluate their safety. Within weeks, there's a new building ordinance. Regulations are introduced and includes fire alarms inside the building, fireproof scenery, sprinkler systems that are turned on, smoke exhausts, standards for exits, standpipes, and limits on occupancy, including no standing room only. Part of this included mandatory exit signs with red lights that would be on all the time. These are the grandfathers of today's red exit signs that we're all familiar with. So I want to thank you for watching this video introducing the Iroquois Theater Fire. For some of the sources that I used, I want to thank the NFPA, Smithsonian Magazine, IroquoisTheater.com, and Disaster History Blog, whose websites I use to get information about this that I use in this video. The background photo is from the blog showing 3 steamers, the first due ladder, and 2 hose wagons operating on the front of the theater. You'll notice there's a lot of smoke. Most of that is from the steamers operating, as most of the fire had already burned out. I'm going to include a link to all these sites, including the blog with the picture, in the comments section below. If you would like, be sure to check them out to learn information. If you like this video, or any of my other videos, I invite you to also click like and subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a great day and are looking forward to some other videos in this series. Have a good one.